Maduro and those indicted defendants use the drug trafficking trade through Colombia to bring up drugs. And there are a number of acts that I can see, if true, would tie these individuals together. The other counts are just as serious, with drug possession and gun possession involving the terrorism allegations. But there's a lot here for the DOJ and the SDNY to work with in prosecuting these defendants.
I want to go back to Selena, our White House correspondent. Selena, I got to ask you, how did we get here? We know the former president of Honduras was recently pardoned by President Trump, and now we're looking at Maduro, who essentially could be charged with similar charges here. So can you talk us and walk us through how we got to this point?
Well, look, that is certainly a question of a double standard here that we still haven't really heard a good answer from the president. At the same time, we are seeing this treatment of Maduro. He has been captured. He is now facing charges in the United States. As sitting U.S. president in Venezuela. And the president has repeated that his justification here is because he claims he is a narco-terrorist responsible for drug trafficking. So at the same time this is happening, the president recently gave a full pardon to Juan Orlando Hernandez, who is the former president of Honduras. He had been convicted in U.S. federal court of trafficking massive amounts of cocaine into the United States. The president giving him a full pardon, which begs the question of, is this really about drug trafficking? Why the double standard when it comes to these two leaders who are both under accusations of drug trafficking? In terms of how we got to this point, more big picture, I mean, we have seen U.S. pressure in Venezuela steadily escalate for months now, and we really saw it for a while, mostly focused at sea. The U.S. had struck dozens of alleged drug boats. These were deadly strikes, killing at least 115 people, though the administration did not provide public evidence that they were actually smuggling drugs. The U.S. had also been going after and seizing some oil tankers linked to Venezuela. And then just a few days ago, President Trump revealed that the U.S. had conducted a land strike at a port that the president claimed was used by drug traffickers. So that was the first known time that we knew of the U.S. striking inside Venezuela on land. But this escalation that we saw overnight, that was not expected.
All right, what you're looking at right now are live pictures from Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newburgh, New York, where Maduro is reportedly on this plane, and we just started to see some kind of law enforcement or federal agencies go on to that plane right now. I want to bring in Aaron Katersky here. Aaron, can you walk us through what exactly we're looking at right now?
These are some of the federal agents and federal agencies involved in bringing the case against ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. You could see them in their labeled jackets with the alphabet soup of agencies on the back, the DEA, the FBI, all involved in bringing Maduro here to the United States to face federal drug charges. They will undoubtedly want to see him. They may have something to say to him. I recall when a similar scene like this played out when Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was finally brought to the very same place to be prosecuted by the authorities in New York. Somebody whispered to him on the plane, "Welcome to New York." We don't know what's being said to Maduro now, but our sources tell us this is the plane that carried Maduro from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where he first arrived in the clutches of the United States after being exfiltrated from his presidential compound in Venezuela in Caracas overnight by U.S. Special Forces. He was flown with his wife, we believe, aboard that plane to Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newburgh, now waiting to descend the stairs. You could see some of the federal agents just did the same, so undoubtedly they're ready now to bring Maduro out, and he will be ferried to a helicopter that will take him here to New York City for processing like any other criminal defendant would be, and then, we believe, to MDC in Brooklyn, the federal jail, where he will await prosecution. He does have to appear in federal court on the superseding indictment, Ike. That's expected to occur within the next couple of days.
All right, let's go back to legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer, who's also here with us. Brian, I want to talk about the charges that Maduro is facing. This isn't necessarily just about his indictment. There's also an argument here for possible forfeiture. So how would that actually work in this situation?
Yeah, so this is not a RICO or racketeering conspiracy case, but there are some elements that are similar. And one of the similarities is this forfeiture provision, making the argument that any criminal allegations or criminal activity that happened within that first count, that being that narco terrorism conspiracy, that those 19 overt acts that I mentioned, that any ill-got gains or anything that was purchased from ill-got gains can be seized by the federal government. And that might sound mundane or small, but just think about it. If you are the head of Venezuela and you are accused and potentially convicted of being at the head of a narco terrorism group that ran a country, think of all of the proceeds and ill-got gains that the federal government could seize. That's also a part of this indictment.
All right, right now you are looking at live pictures at Stewart Air National Guard Base in New Bern, New York, where federal agents have already walked up those flight steps to the plane where Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro is apparently on right now. We've been looking at these pictures for several minutes now. We've seen several agents go up and down these stairs, potentially getting ready to bring Maduro out from those. Brian, I want to ask you another question. What do the negotiations for a plea deal actually look like? And can you talk to us about the housing Maduro will likely be in until he waits for his trial?
So, as Aaron, I'll start backwards with the housing. As Aaron Katursky pointed out, he is more likely than not going to go to MDC, or the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, New York. And there are different levels of housing. You might hear people talk about what's called Gen Pop, or general population. I would highly suggest that he's not going to be there just for safety precautions. I would assume that he would either be in segregated population, something like what we call the SHU, like segregated housing unit, or in a more limited housing unit where only 10 to maybe a dozen people are going to be because of his high profile status. When it comes to negotiating, like any other federal criminal case, there's going to be a conversation between whoever represents him as a defense attorney and federal prosecutors. Now, we alluded that there have been others, like the Honduras president, who was convicted of similar crimes and got a pardon. I would imagine that negotiations, as far as a potential pardon, as low as to reduce prison time, would be something that would be discussed, providing that more information is given or promises if he was to go back and be the president of Venezuela. I think a case like this is ripe for a lot of negotiating as to how the future of the United States and Venezuela could look.
All right, let's go back to White House correspondent Selena Wang. Selena, we've seen President Trump earlier today talk about how the U.S. will essentially run Venezuela. Can you talk to us about the transition of power here and what that would actually look like moving forward?
I mean, that was a hugely stunning and consequential statement from the president, revealing that he plans for the U.S. to run Venezuela. But the president providing very little detail about what that would actually look like. When I pressed for information, the president said a group would be running the country, largely by the people behind him, he said, gesturing to Secretary Rubio and Secretary Hegseth, who were standing behind him when he was in front of the podium up at Mar-a-Lago. And the president said that they would be part of a team working with the people of Venezuela. The president strikingly suggesting that this is an open-ended commitment. In terms of U.S. military boots on the ground, if that is going to be necessary as part of this transition, the president wasn't clear, but he did say he wasn't afraid of boots on the ground. The president telling me that we'll run it properly, we'll run it professionally. The president also repeatedly stressed that oil companies will be going into Venezuela, investing billions of dollars into the country. There have been questions since the beginning about whether the president's end game here is really related to oil. The president has repeatedly talked about how the U.S. oil and international oil companies have been unfairly treated. The president now saying that they're going to be sending their expertise in. They'll be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth, saying that wealth is going to be going to the people of Venezuela. And it also, quote, goes to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused by that country.
Right now, you are looking at the plane that is supposedly carrying Nicolas Maduro at Stewart Air National Guard Base in New Bern, New York. He is expected to hop on a helicopter where he will be taken to New York City to that jail where he will be waiting until his trial. I want to get back to Aaron Katursky here. Aaron, we know the security is extremely tight around this transfer. Can you tell us exactly what we're looking at, what's happening right now? And also, can you talk about how court officials essentially will try to, or worrying rather, about how this entire thing could become a spectacle. How are they looking and addressing that issue?
Well, the Southern District of New York, the federal courthouse in downtown Manhattan, is no stranger to spectacle. We just finished the Sean Combs trial, and Luigi Mangione is due in federal court there on Friday of next week. So they're good with spectacle. This will be potentially unique, as there have already been protests in New York City today regarding the operation that brought Nicolas Maduro here for prosecution, Ike. So it's possible they will put some extra fencing, some extra police officers outside the courthouse. But what is going to unfold is sort of a standard process for any criminal defendant. We're not clear that he has a lawyer, but he's going to need one, or someone will be appointed to represent him in court as these charges are prosecuted. But right now, he is being readied for transport after his flight from Guantanamo Bay, after his appearance on the USS Iwo Jima. I'm struck, it's just 16 hours after this U.S. military operation to extract him, and he's already on the ground in New York City. 16 hours ago, he was on the beach in Caracas at his presidential compound with Delta Force knocking at the door, and him and his wife, according to President Trump, trying to flee into a steel-reinforced safe room. Delta Force extracted him from that room while taking fire, exfiltrated him from the country, put him on the boat, then put him on a plane. Now he's landed in New York. It is just a stunning turn for the ousted Venezuelan president, who is now waiting for a short helicopter ride to Manhattan, where he'll be processed, and then likely another helicopter ride to jail.
Right. Let's bring back ABC legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer, who's also with us here. Brian, you're obviously looking at these live images right now. Maduro is expected to come out of this plane at any moment now. We do know that he will have a trial coming up soon. So what is that trial actually expected to look like?
So this is a case where the allegations are that there are multiple overt acts towards a narco-terrorism conspiracy. Not just that, there's the completion of the actual acts of what the government is accusing to be tons of cocaine being transported into Venezuela and then making its way into the United States through various nefarious ways. Think of any kind of movie where you've thought of a head of state moving drugs across state lines. He's accused of paying off individuals and law enforcement to look the other way, allegedly having diplomatic immunity for some of the planes that were accused of transporting drugs across state lines. He's accused, and I'm talking about Maduro, of using his power not just as a president, but in his previous positions within the government to make sure that drugs and money and bribes went undetected. And for a trial to make out all of those allegations, you're going to see dozens of people over the course of weeks, if not months, connecting the dots to all of these alleged interactions to try to show that these named defendants, and potentially more who were arrested down the line, not only provided service and aid, but knew they were doing so to the detriment of the United States and to the benefit of themselves and the government of Venezuela. This would be a very long and drawn out process. I would imagine that before we get there, though, some of the defendants would likely take a plea and look towards testifying against co-defendants. If there is a trial, I would only suspect a few handful of those. This would be a very big case for anyone to handle, though, as a defense attorney or prosecutor.
Right. Let's go back to White House correspondent Selena Wang. Selena, you're watching the pictures right now of the airplane where Nicolas Maduro is expected to be in. Shortly will come out. This is Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newburgh, New York. We've been hearing the reaction from lawmakers on both sides about this operation. But can you talk to us about the international reaction? What are other countries saying about the United States carrying out this operation on Venezuela, which is a sovereign nation?
We are hearing reactions that really run the gamut. There is some celebration. There is a lot of condemnation, especially from adversaries of the United States. And we're also hearing from European leaders who are circumspect about the U.S.'s actions. For instance, French leader Emmanuel Macron says the Venezuelan people are today rid of Nicolas Maduro's dictatorship and can only rejoice, but added that the upcoming transition must be peaceful, democratic, and respectful of the will of the Venezuelan people, adding that political instability must not be allowed to arise in Venezuela. And I think that is really the big concern that we are hearing from U.S. allies, is about what happens next in light of this power vacuum. How can the U.S. ensure that this doesn't lead to instability, that this doesn't lead to the situation on the ground in Venezuela getting even worse? Experts have said if Venezuela becomes a failed state, this could lead to more of the adverse outcomes that the president doesn't want, like more drug trafficking, more migrants fleeing to the United States. So that's really what our allies are looking at. There are also questions about what message this sends to countries like Russia, to China. Again, you had the U.S. attacking a sovereign nation, taking out the sitting president. What message does that send to a country like Russia when it comes to their ambitions in Ukraine, or a country like China when it comes to their ambitions with Taiwan?
And Selena, big picture here. If the U.S. does succeed in trying to potentially convict Maduro in New York, how does that reshape Washington's leverage in Venezuela? And what kind of message does that send to other countries who are accused of having drug trafficking tendencies within their government?
Well, the president has suggested multiple times that this should be a warning, that what happened to Maduro could happen to other countries. The president also has something that he calls a doctrine for the region. The president essentially, what he calls his expanded Monroe Doctrine, which is the view that America is the leader of the Western Hemisphere. The president has said before that all the way back, he called the Monroe Doctrine a big deal, and saying that under this national security strategy, that American dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again. He's saying other administrations have neglected or even contributed to these growing security threats in the Western Hemisphere. The president making clear that they are reasserting American power in what he calls a powerful way in our home region. So the president taking on this entire hemisphere with a very assertive and aggressive U.S. strategy.
All right, again, you are looking at live pictures at Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newbern, New York, where ousted Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro is on the plane, awaited to be taken out by federal authorities to be taken to Manhattan for further processing. I want to bring in investigative reporter Aaron Katersky, who's been here with me every moment now. Aaron, I know it's a little dark, but we're starting to see a lot of images of people walking in and out of that plane. What could possibly be going on right now, and what are the next steps for Maduro?
In all likelihood, Ike, they are readying Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia for movement into Manhattan for formal processing. But it's possible the DEA may be taking statements. It's possible they could be working on securing him to make sure he's ready for movement, or perhaps allowing him to change into warmer clothes. The only image we've seen of him today is the one that President Trump put on social media that shows him aboard the USS Iwo Jima clutching a water bottle and apparently blindfolded. So it didn't look like he would be dressed for the weather in New York, where it feels like it's in the teens and there's snow on the ground, as he's about to exit this plane and descend the steps in the custody of American law enforcement.
Let's go back to ABC legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer. Brian, we've seen so many high-profile cases right here in New York City. Luigi Mangione, obviously, just recently. So what is this first court date for Nicolas Maduro look like? What will that potentially look like?
So, like, the first court date is going to be what's called an arraignment. That is when the defendant, or Maduro in this case, and potentially his wife, if they hold it at the same time, will formally hear the charges or allegations against them. They will either be assigned a federal public defender if they do not already have counsel available for them. If they do get counsel later down the road, then counsel will take over, but someone will be assigned to them or standing next to them, at least at the first interaction. There we'll hear from the judge, especially about issues of being a flight risk. I think the very fact, and no pun intended, that we're watching a plane now and that Maduro had to be brought here in the way that he was I would lean on the idea that the judge is going to see him as being a flight risk and that he will be remanded, meaning no amount of bail would be set, that he can be released. And from there, we're going to start the process of picking the next court date, talking about things like discovery, information being handed over. There may be a request to have a conversation with the prosecutors outside of the presence of the jury. We may not hear it, but I would imagine the process of trying to see if there's a plea deal, a way to resolve this case without a trial would happen. And so both in front of the court and behind the court, there will be moving pieces as to what's next. And then from there, as Aaron Katersky has said a number of times, he'll go probably back to MDC, awaiting for future court dates.
All right, again, you're looking at live pictures at Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newburgh, New York, where Maduro is expected to walk down those lighted flight steps at any moment, as he was just brought here by U.S. forces from that operation overnight. Let's bring in former Caracas chief of station for the CIA, Rick Delatorre. He's now the founder and CEO of Tower Strategies. Rick, thank you for joining me. You're looking at these live pictures right now, and it was clear Maduro was not going to step down on his own accord. So was this the only way to do it, and where do you see all of this headed?
Well, I don't know if it was the only way to do it, but it was certainly the best way to do it. I don't think I don't think his inner circle would have allowed him to get the get out of jail free card and relocate him and his family to a to another third country, and then left them all behind, holding the bag and having to deal with the Department of Justice or the Department of Defense. So he really didn't have a lot of options when it came to off-ramping and dealing with the U.S. This is actually justice finally being served, late, but finally coming to terms with the reality that he ran a narco state, he was an illegitimate leader, and now he's facing U.S. justice.
And how do you think the people of Venezuela will respond to the U.S. being in control for now?
Oh, I think they're going to certainly welcome it. They understand it. I mean, if you just look at what's happening on the streets, they're finally feeling, for the first time in many years, the noose loosening around their necks. This is a great and will be a historic day for Venezuela. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, right? It wasn't that long ago Venezuela had the second highest GDP in our hemisphere and ended up having probably the second or third worst behind Haiti. That's all by design, by Chavez and then later Maduro and those in his inner circle. They're all sitting very happy, up until today, when they, with their, billions of dollars in foreign banks that they've taken from the people of Venezuela. That's all hopefully going to be gone very soon.
And Rick, let's take a 30,000-foot look at this right now. What do you think this operation means for the U.S.'s reputation and standing on the world stage?
I think it means we're back. I've criticized ever since 9/11, and rightfully, right, we had to focus on the pressing matters at hand, dealing with terrorism around the world. But we turned our back on this hemisphere. And by turning our back on this hemisphere, what we did was we allowed the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, Cuban intelligence apparatus, we let them wreak havoc and chaos throughout the entire hemisphere. Now we're refocused. We're actually doing something against fentanyl, against drugs, against human trafficking, and I think it's a clear message to everyone else in the region that if you're running a country and at the same time you think that you could continue to do business with narco terrorists, your time's going to be very limited.
All right, let's bring in senior White House correspondent Selena Wang right now, who's in Florida, traveling with the president throughout this past several weeks now. Selena, can you talk about the response from the Venezuelan vice president? We saw her make some very strong remarks after Maduro was taken in that operation overnight.
Yeah, the Venezuelan vice president addressed the country on state television and demanded the release of Maduro, saying that he is the only president of Venezuela, demanding his release and that of his wife as well. So that is really significant because during the press conference, the president told reporters, including an answer to one of my questions, that she's essentially willing to do whatever Washington wants, whatever the U.S. thinks is necessary to make Venezuela great again. The president saying verbatim that she had a long conversation with Marco, as in Marco Rubio, and she said, "We'll do whatever you need." He added that she was gracious, but she doesn't have a choice. We're going to have to get this done right. That is in stark contrast with the vice president demanding for the immediate release of the Venezuelan president, Maduro. Now, look, this also comes as there are big questions about what the president meant by the U.S. will be running Venezuela. Is the U.S. confident that they can work with what's left of Maduro's regime, including the vice president? Trump has not clearly endorsed the opposition party. So when the president tells me that Hegseth and Rubio are going to be working with a team of people in Venezuela to run the country, unclear who exactly the president is pointing to.
And Selena, we heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio say Congress wasn't notified prior to the operation, saying doing so would have, quote, endangered the mission. So when they actually finally do talk to the Gang of Eight and eventually talk to full Congress, how do you think that statement will play out with the rest of the lawmakers?
Look, especially when it comes to Democratic lawmakers, you are seeing outrage that Congress was not notified, that the president did not receive authorization from Congress for something like this in terms of the U.S. striking in a sovereign nation, taking out, capturing the sitting president. There were even questions about whether or not it was legal for the president to be conducting these boat strikes in international waters, these deadly boat strikes on these boats allegedly linked to drug traffickers. When it comes to strike inside Venezuela, the president's own chief of staff, Susie Wiles, had told Vanity Fair in a series of interviews that the president would need congressional authorization for an action like this. So the president will certainly be facing a lot of scrutiny from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, but especially from Democrats who are deeply concerned. You do, though, have some top Republicans who are fully backing the president, saying they didn't need to be notified. Again, siding with Rubio, saying they needed to maintain the operational security to ensure that there wouldn't be any leaks for such a delicate and sensitive operation.
All right, let's go back to Chief Investigative Correspondent Aaron Katersky, who's here with me now in New York. Aaron, we've been watching this plane on the tarmac now for about a half hour. We've seen the lights essentially turn dark. The lights on the stairs come up. That just tells you how long they've been there. Can you talk to us exactly what's happening right now and what the next steps look like?
Yeah, I've been in touch with some of the DEA agents who ostensibly could be there, and what's the holdup? But the plane has been on the ground now for the better part of 45 minutes, Ike, and Maduro and his wife, we believe, are aboard. We've seen some of the agents go up the steps, whether they're attempting to take statements, whether Maduro is talking, or whether he's simply getting dressed for the weather. We don't quite know. But from here, once he descends the steps, he'll be ferried to a helicopter for a short ride to Manhattan, where he's going to be formally processed as a federal criminal defendant before he is housed, we believe, at MDC in Brooklyn, which is the federal jail where all defendants awaiting prosecution in Manhattan spend some time. But for Maduro, he is a bit of a unique figure. It appears now there are a number of individuals descending the steps. Whether Maduro is there with them is almost impossible to tell given the lighting conditions. But it does appear that they are about to bring him from the doorway of the government airplane there on the ground at Stewart Air National Guard Base.
Now, is there a helicopter waiting for him right here as soon as he walks down, or is there another process in which he'll have to wait for a little bit?
I don't think he's going to have to wait long. If it's not right there, it's not far. And you can see a number of agents descending with belongings, whether their own or Maduro's, we're not sure. It's likely he's been stripped of whatever he was wearing and is in some kind of jail garb.
Now, in terms... No, go ahead.
It appears perhaps some of the agents are pausing with their phones, right, to perhaps photograph or document the moment that Maduro stepped from the plane and is being taken in the clutches of American law enforcement down the steps now in federal custody after a dramatic and, as the military called it, audacious overnight operation involving more than 150 aircraft taking off simultaneously from 20 different bases, helicopters flying at no more than 100 feet in order to extract Maduro and his wife from their hiding spot on the presidential compound in Caracas.
Aaron, what happens tonight when he gets on that helicopter and he's brought to Manhattan? What's the next step?
He'll be processed as a criminal defendant, and that means in all likelihood a photograph, a mugshot, will be taken. We may not see it. They are typically not released in the federal system. Also means fingerprints and any other brief medical screenings that need to be done. If there's medication that he takes or needs, that could be arranged for him as well. And then it's another short ride to jail, where a similar procedure could begin again. But it appears now that Nicolas Maduro, under the cover of dusk and now dark, has been taken from the plane, escorted down the steps by American law enforcement, largely with the DEA. And we can tell you, Ike, the DEA administrator, Terry Cole, made the trip from Washington to be there on the tarmac to personally place Maduro under formal arrest now that he's on American soil.
All right, let's bring in former Caracas chief of station for the CIA and national security and intelligence expert, Rick De La Torre. Rick, can you give us a little bit of color as to what exactly is happening right now? We know that we are under some darkness here, but we just know that several federal agents and possibly Maduro just walked down from those flight steps from that plane, and it's assumed that he's likely going to hop into a helicopter at any moment now and be taken to Manhattan for further processing. What exactly is going on at this moment?
Well, I think what we're watching is process and procedure playing out. They're not going to move out of the airplane onto the tarmac if something isn't already there waiting for them to continue moving on. And also, I think what you're going to see is what we know, that he's going to be formally arrested, I guess, on U.S. soil. Someone from DOJ will be waiting for them at the bottom of the stairs, welcoming them to the great state of New York, letting them know that they're under arrest, and then they'll be processed from there. But it doesn't make sense to get them off the airplane if there isn't something already in place to move them then to the next stage.
Now, Rick, I want to talk about the entire process in which this entire operation happened. Why do you think Congress wasn't notified beforehand? Do you think there was some trepidation in terms of legality of this operation?
Well, none. I mean, this is a perfectly legal operation. We've been doing this for decades. It's covered completely under the laws that Congress itself passed. We've conducted operations like this in other places of the world. Sadly, I think what we're seeing when you have a divided Congress, when you have politics play a bigger role in this, normally in operations I've been a part of and conducted, we don't notify Congress of what we're about to do, when we're doing it, how we're doing it. We only brief them afterwards, and that's what's required by oversight law to do so. If we do that, if we now, I will say there is an exception to that. We obviously do notify what we call the group of four in Congress, and and that's both the Senate and House majority and minority leaders. We certainly notify them, but we don't go and speak to every congressman and let them know what's going on and happening. If we did that, God knows what would happen. For a politician would take that advantage to run to the nearest microphone and put U.S. lives and an operation at risk. So we don't do that.
All right, thank you. Rick De La Torre, Aaron Katersky, senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, and ABC legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer. Thank you very much for your analysis. We'll have continuing updates right here on ABC News Live throughout the day. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Ajachi. More news after the break.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo,
Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland, from Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home?
We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Raleigh, North Carolina. The U.S. Capitol. Mayfield, Kentucky.
Minneapolis,
Mexico. Tongass National Forest, Alaska.
getting you behind the stories as they happen, giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
All across America.
Good morning.
Hello.
Wherever we are.
Welcome. It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
Hi. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we've both never been. Growing up doesn't mean getting
Good morning. How are you?
At the start of the day, letting us into your home, putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together.
Happy birthday.
Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
An operation to capture ISIS fighters.
Is this our Combat Operations Center?
We're approaching the gate now. Militants came in from 4 or 5 different directions.
Operational nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag, there's not a tear in it.
Not a tear in it.
How important is this label right here, Made in the USA? Look at your smile. You're proud of this.
I love it.
Great work.
Hi.
Where are you? Where are you?
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
David, good to meet you.
Ismail? David.
David.
Yes, yes. I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Hi, I'm Micah Jacci. Let's get straight to breaking news on ABC News Live Weekend. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is now in New York after President Trump announced Maduro and his wife were captured in a U.S. military operation overnight. Maduro arriving a short time ago at Stewart Air National Guard Base. Next, he's expected to travel by helicopter to New York City, then head to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he's expected to be processed and held until his trial. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says Congress was not notified prior to the operation, saying doing so would have, quote, endangered the mission. 4 House Republicans have released statements criticizing the U.S. military mission in Venezuela, and Democratic House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are also now calling for an immediate briefing for the Gang of 8 and a briefing next week for all members of Congress. President Trump says the U.S. will, quote, run the country for a period of time, and he's not ruling out boots on the ground in Venezuela. Here's President Trump earlier explaining his decision to remove Maduro from power.
People where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela expired, Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region.
Now, in a speech earlier, Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez demanded the immediate release of Maduro and his wife and said Venezuela has a, quote, duty to safeguard its sovereignty that has been savagely attacked, and they are ready to defend themselves. Let's bring in ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky with me here in New York. Aaron, Maduro is in the U.S., so what happens next?
Nicolas Maduro touched down a short while ago, like about 15 or so hours after U.S. Special Forces exfiltrated him from the presidential compound in Caracas so that he could face federal drug charges here in New York. A 4-count, 25-page indictment charges him with narco-terrorism conspiracy and also names his wife, who's in custody along with him, and his son, who does not appear to be in custody, along with 3 other Venezuelan officials. Maduro descended that staircase at Stewart Air National Guard Base in Newburgh, New York, in the company of the DEA, and is now on his way to Manhattan for formal processing as a criminal defendant before he spends the night in jail, at least one night. We expect that his first court appearance in a U.S. courtroom could occur as soon as Monday, Ike.
Yeah, stunning images here that are coming out of Newburgh, New York. What more do we know about how this operation was carried out?
This was, to listen to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, an audacious operation carried out under the cover of night. It was dark and it was deadly, according to Donald Trump. 150-plus aircraft simultaneously took off from 20 different bases, the military said. Helicopters flew no more than 100 feet off the ground in order to get elite Delta Force troops into the presidential compound at about 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern Time. 2.5 hours later, Nicolas Maduro, the now ousted president of Venezuela, was on the USS Iwo Jima in the custody of the United States. And President Trump celebrated what he called this incredible and flawless operation. We know that U.S. forces took fire during the entire time, Ike. There were a couple of minor injuries, but we're told for the most part all U.S. troops are going to be okay. And once the operation ended, it was clear that Venezuela was free from the clutches of dictatorship, but in very short order seemed to be in this sort of neo-colonialism, as President Trump announced the United States would run the country for a period of time until a new suitable government is established. And he didn't quite explain how all that's going to work.
Right. I believe we have live pictures right now from Stewart International Guard Base. They were just on your screen moments ago. You're seeing a lot of law enforcement. There we go. A lot of law enforcement present at that base, obviously getting ready to transport Maduro. Aaron, I want to talk to you again. Once he gets to Manhattan and he starts to get processed, what does that look like moving forward?
That looks like fingerprints, which are no longer dipped in ink and put on a piece of paper. It's an electronic process by and large now. And also a photograph, a mugshot is going to be taken of Nicolas Maduro. For the United States, this is a long time coming. Maduro was first indicted here in New York, in the Southern District of New York in Manhattan in 2020 on narco-terrorism conspiracy charges. And the updated indictment expands the timeline of his alleged crimes to bring it up into the present day. For 25 years, the United States accuses Maduro of sitting atop this narco conspiracy that flooded the U.S. with cocaine, that also accused him of colluding with violent and dangerous drug traffickers, militants, rebel groups in Colombia in particular, the Sinaloa cartel, once run by El Chapo Guzman, who made this very similar trip into the clutches of the United States not long ago and himself was convicted. Now Nicolas Maduro is going to face, as the Attorney General Pam Bondi put it today, the full wrath of American justice.
All right, Aaron Katersky, thank you for your reporting and context. Let's also bring in ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, traveling with the president. Selena, what did President Trump tell you about how this transition of power in Venezuela will work?
Yeah, Ike, I mean, these were some of the most stunning comments from President Trump during that entire press conference, revealing that the U.S. is going to be, quote, running Venezuela, saying for not putting a clear timeline on this, essentially saying that this is an open-ended, indefinite commitment. Now, when I followed up on what the president meant, he said it would be run by a group, gesturing to the people behind him, saying by those people behind me. That included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Again, when I pressed on what that meant. He said that they would be working with a team of people inside Venezuela to run the country. The president, though, wasn't clear on whether or not U.S. military troops would be involved in this, but he said he wasn't afraid of the notion of U.S. military troops. The president also emphasizing that part of this is U.S. and oil companies going into Venezuela, saying they're investing billions of dollars. He claims that the benefits and the wealth extracted from that would be for the benefit of the Venezuelan people. The president saying we'll run it, quote, properly, we'll run it, quote, professionally, but still huge questions about this. Again, just to look at the big picture here, the U.S. going into a sovereign nation, launching strikes on land, taking out the leader, and now saying that U.S. officials are going to play a role in running that country.
And Selena, what are we hearing from Venezuela's vice president about this operation?
Yeah, so Venezuela's vice president is demanding the return of Nicolas Maduro, saying he is the rightful president. It is interesting to see those very striking comments because that actually refutes what we heard from the president, what we've heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio about their conversations with the vice president. In fact, the president during the press conference said that the VP had said she was ready to work with Washington and that she's essentially willing to do what the U.S. thinks is necessary to make Venezuela great again. So clearly a discrepancy there. And it begs the question of who exactly is the U.S. going to be working with in Venezuela? Trump has not backed the opposition leader, but also these statements don't make it seem like they're going to be able to easily work with what's left of the Maduro regime. So huge questions about future engagement in this country and whether or not the president has just pulled the United States into another long, protracted conflict, something that the president had promised his supporters on the campaign trail that he would not do, that he was the president of peace.
All right, Selena Wang, thank you for your reporting. ABC News legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer joins me now for more. Brian, what do you make of the charges Maduro will face and how the federal government is building its case?
If the allegations are true, this is a strong case by the federal government. We are talking about allegations that go from 1999 that bring us all the way to 2025 with at least 19 overt acts as it just applies to the narco-terrorism conspiracy charges. And when I talk about overt acts, I'm talking about allegations of kidnapping, murder, bribery, paying people to look the other way, applying diplomatic immunity to planes that were flying drugs across state lines. These are the allegations within this indictment. As Aaron Katersky brought up, we're hearing familiar names like El Chapo and others who have not only been criminally charged, but convicted in the Southern District of New York. And if they can make out those allegations and that connective tissue by people involved in this new indictment, it makes it that much easier to indict and convict individuals coming further up the pipeline, like Nicolas Maduro, his wife, and potentially his son, who is, from my understanding, not in custody, but associated with this indictment. Other allegations like possession of firearms or machine guns to facilitate that narco-terrorism. And of course, the forfeiture allegation where they're asking that any ill-got gains be forfeited to the government. If these allegations are true, it's a strong case by the federal government.
Now, Brian, once Maduro appears in court, what do you think a trial would look like?
A trial of this magnitude would be a long and protracted trial. Any one of those overt acts, for example, saying that Maduro is alleged to have used his diplomatic immunity to have a plane fly from Colombia to Venezuela or to Mexico to, in essence, make sure those illegal drugs made their way to the United States, that could be a case in of itself. But there are almost 19 of those types of allegations over the course of 2.5 decades, 3 other counts involving guns as well. There would be a lot of witnesses, a lot of testimony, a lot of evidence in the form of electronic transfers of money, as well as tracking of people and email addresses. This would be a trial that, in my mind, would last months and could lead to a conviction of decades, if not life behind bars.
And Brian, there are a lot of questions about the legality of the U.S. capture of Maduro. What do you make of it?
I think those questions will be separate and apart from the criminal case. Yes, will we hear some of the arguments in terms of the arrest of Maduro, the operation that went about, what evidence was collected, whether or not it was done legally or illegally and should be incorporated into the case? Yes, there will be some overlap in terms of how he's arrested. But from an international and maybe even political standpoint, there will be arguments and questions as to what was the legality of this operation. Was this done correctly, appropriately? And even if the answer is no, that might be a moot point in the sense that it's already done. You can't kind of put this all back in the can, so to speak. And so this may just be a legal exercise of asking the question of what happens in the future, while what was already happened has happened, and we might just move forward with Maduro facing charges in the Southern District of New York.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you for your analysis. Turning to the reaction from the international community, Russia, China, and Iran all out with strong statements against the U.S. operation. Our Lama Hassan is tracking that part of our story for us from London. Hey, Lama.
Hey, Ike, yes, so many leaders of so many countries are following events closely and watching what is going on in Venezuela. Reaction, as you can imagine, has been flooding in, and it has been mixed. There's been strong condemnation from Russia, which has been one of Nicolas Maduro's long-term ally, the Russian Foreign Ministry, saying that the U.S. has committed an act of armed aggression against Venezuela, which, quote, causes deep concern and condemnation. The Russian ministry also adding that Caracas must be allowed to determine its own destiny without any destructive military intervention from the outside. So strong words, but not only from Russia, we've also heard from China as well. The Chinese Foreign Ministry saying that they're deeply shocked and strongly condemn the U.S.'s, quote, blatant use of force against a sovereign state and its attack on its president, urging the U.S. to abide by international law as well. Now, we've also heard from the president of Colombia, Venezuela's largest neighbor, saying that Caracas is, quote, under attack. Alert the world. Venezuela has been attacked, is what he wrote. Now, President Trump, as we've heard, has described the attack as something that nobody else could have done, saying it is extremely complex and executed with speed and violence. And I think there'll be many countries right now, like Colombia, as well as Iran, they'll be watching and watching closely. They'll be nervous about how the U.S. was able to swoop in and capture the Venezuelan president and his wife with such ease and so quickly as well. Now, Argentinian President Javier Milei, who is a key Trump ally in South America, celebrating the U.S.'s military action in Venezuela and posting on X saying, long live freedom. Similarly, we've heard from the Ukrainian foreign minister. He said they are defending the right of nations to live freely, free of dictatorship, oppression and human rights violations. The Maduro regime, he said, has violated all such principles in every respect. Now, reaction from European leaders is a little more measured. The Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, she said that they are closely monitoring the situation, and so is the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He said that the UK was not involved in any way in the US operation in Venezuela. He does say that he wants more information about commenting on it. So it's a little more muted from the European nations there, Ike.
All right, Lama Hassan, thank you for that. We'll continue to follow the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Here's a live look at New York City, where Maduro is set to arrive shortly by helicopter. More news right after this.
The day has come.
Avatar Fire and Ash, rated PG-13, now playing.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands.
This killer, he's the Dahmer you've never heard of.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
Never before a face-to-face interview with the camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice?
I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer, only on Hulu.
We raise our hot cocoa mugs to you.
For you to have the most joyous and special holiday.
And celebrate with family and friends.
Like us. Some good cocoa.
cocoa. You're not kidding.
More hot cocoa, please.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy 2026.
Happy holidays.
From our GMA family to yours,
Happy New Year.
The peaceful silence in Kafue National Park was pierced by a gunshot.
There's been a horrible tragic accident.
His wife was shot dead.
There were a number of factors that indicated that this was not an accident. They thought they had gotten away with it for years.
This call is from a federal prison.
I relive this every day in my mind.
I still can't believe it turned out the way it did.
Trophy Wife, Murder on Safari, only on Hulu.
When this view is over, there's a whole other view just getting started.
Hello. Hello.
From backstage secrets.
No, that's not what I said.
That's what you said.
Oh, my God.
To the views you didn't get to hear.
I was blown away.
We're playing with fire here.
Why are so many people listening to the Views Behind the Table podcast?
I can't imagine you could keep all that.
Because nothing's off limits behind the table. Subscribe and listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Amanda Riley was a mother, wife.
Everybody loved her.
I heard the words, "You have stage 3 blood cancer."
We gave our hearts, our prayers. We thought she was God's gift, but she was a liar.
Why would somebody fake cancer?
There's all these pictures of her in the hospital with IVs, tubing. It was only a matter of time until Amanda's whole world came tumbling down.
Oh my God! Scamanda. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Welcome back to ABC News Live Weekend. We're continuing to follow the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Here's a live look at New York City, where Maduro is set to arrive shortly by helicopter and head to the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, where he's expected to be processed and held until his trial. And in South Florida, we're seeing public demonstrations of jubilation, joy, and hope. South Florida's large Venezuelan community has been celebrating the news of Maduro's fall from regime. Christy Fraga, the mayor of Doral, Florida, joins me now for more. Mayor Fraga, your city is home to the largest Venezuelan community in the United States. Why has this been such a celebration today?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, I think there was a lot of mixed emotions. There were some people who didn't know if to cry or to laugh or to smile. Many sensed a sigh of relief, but also a little bit of uncertainty in certain aspects. But many were really just celebrating the fact that justice will be served to a person who, made a lot of people suffer for a long time. Sorry, hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. A person who made a lot of families suffer for a very long time. So I think people were ultimately just very relieved and happy that what came out of today. I'm grateful to our military and to President Trump for the decisive actions. We know that this was an action that needed to be taken to secure the Western Hemisphere, and for a long time, this area was just ignored by the American politicians and cannot be anymore. So we will continue to watch over the next coming days and hope for a peaceful transition, an opportunity for democracy to be respected in Venezuela, and ultimately, hopefully, also penetrate to other areas that have not seen a democratic process for many years, like Cuba and Nicaragua.
Yeah, Mayor Fraga, I know that in Doral, your community there, so many Venezuelans are celebrating the decision to see Maduro essentially his regime toppled. But I want to know how that community is about the U.S. to possibly run Venezuela in the meantime. How are they reacting to that decision?
I think there's restored faith and hope is necessary to be able to restore democracy. There is absolutely no chance that if we allow the current administration to continue, that there will be a peaceful transition. And so the U.S. does need to stay active and involved to be able to assure that that transition exists and happens and that it is respected. So although many are uncertain on how this will actually take place, and we're expecting to receive some response and clarity to that over the coming days, I think it is necessary for the U.S. to stay involved at this point. Otherwise, we will just continue to see more of the same, which is not what is needed in this region to really restore safety and peace and security for all who are seeking it.
Republican Mayor Christy Fraga, thank you very much. Coming up here on ABC News Live, a look at some of the other top stories of the day, including the latest on the deadly fire at a Swiss ski resort, what investigators are saying about the case, plus the wet weather from coast to coast. Your weekend forecast straight ahead.
You called her? I did. I work with Morgan on every case.
You want to flout procedure at every turn?
I've never flouted anything.
You sure about that?
Yes, I am. Mid-air homicide. I will work this case for free. I don't mean that. That's just something people say.
America's #1 most watched daytime talk show is ABC's The View.
You all heard it here first. I love it. I'm there for it.
Hot topics, political views.
That's what we're about.
Voices that matter. It all goes down right here.
That's why it's called the what?
The View. I love it. I'm all in.
Second that.
This is going to be must-see TV.
And so much could happen.
Amanda Riley was a mother, wife.
Everybody loved her.
I heard the words, "You have stage 3 blood cancer."
We gave our hearts, our prayers. We thought she was God's gift, but she was a liar.
Why would somebody fake cancer?
There's all these pictures of her in the hospital with IVs, tubing. It was only a matter of time until Amanda's whole world came tumbling down.
Oh my God! Scamanda. All episodes now streaming on Hulu.
Abbott on 3, Abbott on me.
Welcome to the brand new Abbott Elementary.
I'm gonna need a bigger mop.
How are we supposed to teach here?
Well, we do Zoom rooms.
You out of your mind.
Let's time up.
Yeah.
Oh.
We are ready to welcome the kids to the new Abbott.
Anybody else hearing that?
Law school is crazy.
Hey, help, my fiance's on the floor with blood everywhere. Please hurry. There's a knife sticking out of her heart. Oh, no.
Philadelphia medical examiner initially ruled Greenberg's death a homicide before switching it to suicide.
How was this ruled a suicide?
It just does not add up.
Everyone realized how strange and twisted this case was.
If you want to get away with a homicide, have it declared a suicide.
Death in Apartment 603. What happened to Ellen Greenberg? Only on Hulu.
Abbott on 3, Abbott on me.
Welcome to the brand new Abbott Elementary.
I'm gonna need a bigger mop.
How are we supposed to teach here?
Well, we do Zoom rooms.
You out of your mind.
Let's time up.
Yeah.
Oh.
We are ready to welcome the kids to the new Abbott.
Anybody else hearing that?
Law school is crazy.
Reporting from the path of Hurricane Helene in Tallahassee, Florida, I'm Micah Jachi. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live. Welcome back to ABC News Live Weekend. Let's get a quick check of your weekend weather. Meteorologist Jeff Banson is tracking the forecast. Jeff, what's it looking like right now?
Well, it's the West again. Stop me if you've heard that before. The West has just been getting pummeled week after week here as we headed through December and now into the new year. Another round of storms is going to be bringing rain. You see the flood watches up there from NorCal all the way down into the valleys. We've got wind along this time. You can see Santa Maria just north of L.A. into the wind advisory, some more up into Northern California and Southern Oregon. And then we also have coastal flood alerts this time. Yeah, there's a lot of wind coming off the Pacific coast here, pushing that water ashore. So we're talking about coastal flood alerts, whether it be coastal flood warnings or coastal flood advisories for inundation during high tides right on through Sunday morning. And then if that weren't all enough, we've got feet of snow for the Sierra Nevada. You can see they're just round after round pummeling the coast here. 4 to 6 inches of rain in some spots. I think 2 to 4 is going to be a little bit broader, but there could be some locally higher amounts than that. And these are just silly numbers. 2 to 4 feet of snow. It's going to be impassable to try to drive through some of those mountain passes. As we take a look at your very cold forecast from the Great Lakes into the Northeast, these are wind chills for tomorrow morning, mostly in the teens, some single digits, some positive, some negative, as you head out towards places like Green Bay. And we have had a very active pattern, but it hasn't resulted in any major storms. They've been little tiny clippers moving across the Great Lakes into the Northeast here. It brought minor amounts of snow, but it's been the lake effect snow. Remember, lake effect snow is not actually a storm. It's just the winds coming over the Great Lakes. That has brought feet of snow to western New York, so they're getting a little bit of a break. Just some minor snow, about 3 to 6 inches now through the next couple of days. But we do have another storm coming here, a little bit stronger of a storm. It's actually going to be bringing some freezing rain to the upper Midwest, and we're going to watch that as it moves into the Great Lakes Tuesday into Wednesday. But we'll end here on a positive note, Ike. You know, the West has been, even though it's been getting slammed with storms, it has been above average temperature-wise. The East has been cold. We're flipping the script here. And finally, we're going to see some above average temperatures right here in New York City over the next week. So.
Let's get it. Thanks a lot for that. Now let's take a look at some other top headlines we're following this hour. Swiss investigators say they believe a deadly New Year's Eve bar fire may have been started by sparklers attached to champagne bottles that came too close to the ceiling. Swiss authorities say 40 people were killed and 119 others were injured in the fire. The U.S. Embassy in Switzerland says no Americans are among the victims. And 4 people are dead after a helicopter crash in Arizona. It happened in a remote part of the mountain range outside Phoenix. A local sheriff saying an eyewitness who called 911 reported the helicopter hit part of a recreational slack line before falling to the bottom of a canyon. Federal investigators are now on scene. I'm Mike Ajachi. Thanks for streaming with us. The news never stops. You can find us anywhere you stream live news, and if you're on the go, we're on the ABC News app and abcnews.com too. More news is up next.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed.
Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas,
Edinburgh, Scotland.
From Poland once again tonight. Thank you so much for streaming with us. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw.
Do you think you'll ever be able to go back home?
We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Splintered houses and splintered lives. The magnitude of the devastation. You're streaming ABC News Live. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Santa Fe, New Mexico. Raleigh, North Carolina.
The U.S. Capitol.
Mayfield, Kentucky.
Minneapolis.
Mexico.
Tongass National Forest, Alaska. Getting you behind the stories as they happen. Giving you a front row seat to our world as it plays out in real time, live.
ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights, America's most honored streaming news program, only on ABC News Live. Streaming free right now wherever you stream your news.
All across America.
Good morning.
Hello. Wherever we are.
Welcome. It's good to be home.
It feels like home.
Hi. When's the last time we dropped our things and went? Woke up somewhere that we both never been.
Good morning. How are you? At the start of the day, letting us into your home, putting the good in your morning.
Man, it's good to be home.
GMA. It's an invitation to come together. Happy birthday. Brighten your morning.
I'm George. How are you?
And the day ahead.
We're having so much fun.
It's a years-long mystery that has puzzled investigators. But out here in the desert, there's a break in the case.
Once we were inside, it appeared that people just got up and walked away.
It's not considered a crime scene, right?
That's correct. It wasn't a crime scene.
What detectives uncovered that suggests the McStays may have plotted their own disappearance.
What's incredible is that we're just several hundred yards from the border. I mean, the wall's right
That's
there.
correct. Did they cross the border and go into Mexico voluntarily or involuntarily?
All his surfboards are here, so he didn't go surfing in Mexico, guys. The double stroller here, they don't go anywhere without the double stroller.
It was totally out of character as a husband and wife and family to be romping around.
What bothered me was that I found an email to Summer. I love you forever. Happy birthday, Summer, forever and ever.
And there was a question of, oh, is he following them?
And you see these text messages. These are very threatening. This is scary stuff.
some evidence of financial things that seem shady to me.
What happened to this family?